Barcelona off to a flyer. Well, there's not a lot you can say about this. This is just sheer quality and class. The wall jumps, guy, but to no avail. He couldn't have got it closer to the inside of the right-hand post. Look at the swerve in the set. And he says,
to be relegated. Confirmation 4-2 to 4.
Rivaldo! That's magnificent!
Hey guys, welcome to a classical edition of the Pythagoras Perspective, brought to you by Pythagoras in Boots. In today's edition, I'm going to be looking at the bandy-legged bandit, Rivaldo, one of the most underappreciated Brazilian footballers of all time. Now in the first part of this video, we're going to be looking at Rivaldo's tactical evolution from his early rise at Palmeiras and Deportivo to his prime years at Barcelona and for Brazil. Before earning a move to Palmeiras, Rivaldo had to overcome poverty and the death of his father and played for a number of Brazilian clubs including Corinthians before he made it to the big time, Palmeiras, one of the leading teams in Brazilian football. Now Palmeiras were the biggest club in Brazil, having won the title in 1993, and they were bankrolled by Parmalat, the same team behind Parma, hence being the richest club in Brazil. So this was a big deal for Rivaldo. And he came into a side managed by future Real Madrid manager Wanderlei Luxemburgo, and they played in a 4-2-2-2. However, some said that it was so aggressive that it might as well have been a 2-4-2-2. Now, due to having Roberto Carlos, who would go on to be a lifelong companion down the left in this Palmeiras side, it allowed Rivaldo to have the freedom to roam around, something he didn't quite have at Corinthians. But there was limitations to how much he could roam, but you would see him roam to central areas and sometimes even switch flanks as well. Ultimately, Rivaldo was a huge success for Palmeiras in his initial few seasons, winning the Bola de Ouro for the best player in his position. However, the success came at a cost, and Palmeiras had to sell off Roberto Carlos and Edmundo, who headed for Europe. Now in 1995 there was a major rebuild, with Carlos leaving and Cafu coming into the side, and because Cafu was bombing down the right so much, it meant that Rivaldo ended up playing a bit more wider than he'd been playing in previous seasons. After yet another league title win in which Rivaldo was instrumental, many clubs across Europe wanted him. However, one club stood out, Parma. They had Thuram, Buffon, Crespo and Cannavaro, and they were also bankrolled by Parmalat, the same team that sponsored Palmeiras. Everything was set to go, but there was an issue with wage demands, and after Rivaldo's disappointing showing in the 1996 Olympics, the transfer fell through, so he ended up at Deportivo. Now, for me, Deportivo is the place where Rivaldo became Rivaldo. The swagger in his play was on another level to what we'd seen in Palmeiras and Corinthians. Yes, at Palmeiras he was one of the better players there, but he didn't have that same confidence and that aura that you later on associated with him. He didn't look like a Ballon d'Or talent when he was at Palmeiras, but at Deportivo he looked dangerous. He started off featuring mostly on the left hand side, but as his confidence grew more and more, he began drifting into central areas, controlling the play and really running at players in central positions. And even his movement, his finishing went up another level. He scored 21 goals in 41 games. He was the third joint highest goal scorer in La Liga. And with his big performances catching the eye, in particular against Barcelona and Atletico, Sir Bobby Robson recommended to the Barcelona board, if Ronaldo leaves, this is the Brazilian you need to get. He's got World Player of the Year material written all over him. Now, whilst Sir Bobby Robson was instrumental in bringing Rivaldo to Barcelona, he was unceremoniously dumped and moved upstairs, and Louis van Gaal, the architect of Ajax's Champions League triumphs in the 90s, was brought in. Now, whilst Van Gaal had tweaked his formation to a 4-3-3, his philosophy remained the same. He was very hard-nosed, rigid, disciplined, and that meant he was very incompatible with what Rivaldo needed at that stage in his career. Now, the relationship was generally successful. They won multiple league titles, but in the Champions League they struggled. And one of the big factors was the fact that Rivaldo felt he was restricted out on that left wing side. He had mentally, tactically and technically evolved since his time at Palmeiras, and he now wanted to be given the keys to run the number 10 position. Instead, he was having to track back and put in crosses like a workhorse left winger. And by no longer being allowed to roam inside, he was restricted. He wasn't a Ryan Giggs who liked to slalom his way down the left-hand side. He was much easier to mark now. Which begs the question, how was Rivaldo such an effective goal scorer even during Van Gaal's spell in charge? He scored 28 goals in 51 appearances in his first season, 29 goals in 48 appearances the following season, and named World Player of the Year. Well, Rivaldo effectively rebelled. So just look at this footage here. Rivaldo plays the ball out wide. Now, instead of making a run towards the far post, which is where you'd expect a left wing forward like Cristiano Ronaldo to make his run, he picks it up here instead in the number 10 spot. Now, he's unlucky, it doesn't lead to anything there. But once again here, chest layoff and moves into a central area. Picks it up here in the hole. And again, looking to play, could have played that ball through there. But he's playing with a number 10's mindset. Now, the team effectively rebelled together. So the left centre mid here and the left back bombed forward to take care of the left flank, which then enabled Rivaldo to move himself forward into the number 10 support striker slot, get long shots off with his deadly left foot, or move over to the right flank and curl it to the opposite corner. Essentially, by rebelling, Rivaldo had become Barcelona's biggest creative and goal-scoring threat. Moving on to the national team, Rivaldo made his debut in 1993, and there was even talk of him being in the 1994 World Cup squad. But it took him 1998 to truly establish himself, and he was reunited with his fullback partners from Palmeiras, Roberto Carlos and Cafu. And he played in a free-ish left-sided role in this 4-2-2-2, where him and Leonardo took turns to rotate in central areas, and it was Ronaldo and Bebeto up top. With Dunga holding, Cafu and Roberto Carlos really could bomb forward and effectively be the team's wide players. And this enabled Rivaldo to be incredibly effective as a goal scorer and as a creative force. He scored 3 goals en route to the final, 2 key goals against Denmark. The only black mark was that he went missing in the final against France when Ronaldo was injured. Going into the 2002 World Cup, there was talk about Rivaldo being past his prime. His ball carrying had regressed, his goal scoring output had halved, and there was a lot of criticism of Brazil as a whole. The team was seen as being aged. Ronaldo, Cafu, Carlos all past their prime. But Scolari kept faith in them, and he brought in Ronaldinho to give legs to the team and to be the dynamic force in wider positions, help transition from defence into attack. And him and Rivaldo played behind Ronaldo the 3 Rs in this 3-4-2-1 setup. Rivaldo ended up having an outstanding tournament in this position by scoring 5 goals in the first 5 games. And after scoring key goals against Belgium and England in the quarterfinals and providing the 2 assists to Ronaldo in the final, Scolari ended up naming him the player of the tournament as Brazil went on to win their 5th World Cup. Now, moving on to a more technical analysis of Rivaldo. I'm looking forward to seeing this footage. Rivaldo was an absolutely brilliant dribbler. He had such versatility with his dribbling. He was able to combine that slaloming style you see from a Ryan Giggs or a Lionel Messi and combine it with what you see from Ronaldinho or Neymar, that Brazilian style full of tricks. His ability in tight spaces was phenomenal, and he had this wiry strength which made it very hard to push him off the ball. He'd win free kicks a lot. He had a deceptive change of pace, which meant once he got past you, it was very hard to catch him up without taking him down. With regards to Rivaldo's first touch, I wouldn't put it in the same league as a Zidane or a Ronaldinho, but it was special. It was definitely special. I mean, the range of touches he had was phenomenal. I mean, look at this touch here. He could bring the ball out the air like a Dennis Bergkamp. It's just that when his back was to goal, it just wasn't quite as strong as Zidane, in my opinion, because of his lack of strength. But his technical range in this regard was absolutely outstanding. With regards to Rivaldo's passing, whilst he had an incredible range of passing and was capable of producing eye-catching through balls using a variety of techniques, I wouldn't say he was as adept at short passing like a Laudrup or Riquelme, who had that extra bit of finesse. But from further out, just entering into the final third, he could be very dangerous, especially from the wider positions, where his passes would catch defences out by surprise. His long-range passing could be spectacular, but I wouldn't say he was as accurate as a Maradona, and thus his switches of play could at times be overhit. In respect of Rivaldo's crossing, in that time period, there was only Figo and Beckham who could rival him. He had incredibly cultured left foot with a great range of crossing, drilled in Rabonas, cutbacks, traditional curled delivery, and it was all honed during his time in Brazil, where he played as an orthodox left winger. Moving on to Rivaldo's shooting, his long shot was phenomenal. He's one of the greatest long-range shooters in history, and he trumps the likes of Messi and Maradona in this regard. In his own era, he was the most complete long shooter and reminiscent of Rivaldo, able to curl it and lace it from distance with equal measure. I don't think there's anyone in the modern era who's comparable. In terms of Rivaldo's finishing ability, an incredibly prolific goal scorer. I mean, this guy was scoring 20 goals a season even when he was playing for Palmeiras. Albeit as the defences got higher, he still continued to score goals, and for 6 consecutive seasons he scored more than 20 goals a season. So someone who's incredibly comfortable in front of goal, and his sheer range of finishing is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you compare him to someone like Raul, who's an incredible finisher in his own right, and Rivaldo's range was arguably even better. The lobs, the chips, the power shots, the volleys, the bicycle kicks. The only thing that was slightly missing from his arsenal was heading. Now, statistically, Rivaldo wasn't the greatest free kick taker of all time. He wasn't even in the top 10. But in terms of the range of his free kicks, for me, he's right up there as one of the greatest free kick takers I've seen. Similar to someone like Juninho and Rivaldo, he was able to curl it as well as hit those long range efforts like that from 35 yards with power, but with curl mixed in combined. What made him dangerous was that he was effective from a range of distances. Rivaldo's mentality was pretty unique in the sense that he had the creative brain and that flair and that cheeky side of a typical Brazilian who's born in the favelas. But he also had grit to go with that. Someone who had this underdog mentality, who wanted to fight. He was incredibly professional as well. He said that when he moved to Barcelona, there was fears that he would enjoy the party life like Romario did and Ronaldo, but he was made of a different ilk. He wanted to be professional. He wanted to show everyone just how good he is. And the longevity of his career post his prime has demonstrated his love and passion for the game. His struggles with Van Gaal have raised concerns that he was a difficult character who didn't want to follow orders, but it's just that he had a conviction about his own game. He knew where he was best played, and he proved that when he was played in an ideal setup, he was devastating. He was a world-class player. He was an all-time great player. In conclusion, I guess the question on everyone's lips is, was Rivaldo a better player than Ronaldinho? I think in terms of just prime, their best seasons ever, I think it's very close in terms of overall ability. But I think Ronaldinho had that extra layer of magic control where he was very, very untouchable on the ball. He could do everything at his own pace without being fouled, for example. But in terms of longevity, professionalism, consistency, Rivaldo had 6 seasons in a row where he was scoring over 20 goals. I think Rivaldo was the better footballer overall, if we take in the whole holistic package of who he is as a person as well. So for me, he's an incredibly underrated footballer. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Please like, share and subscribe, and see you guys again next time. Bye.